Hello and welcome to Fireside with VC. My name is Andrew Romans, and I'm really happy to have a very cool episode with a friend in one of our portfolio companies from Fund 2. So that's a Rubicon portfolio, Louis David Mangin. So I actually speak French, so I feel a little odd saying Louis David, and I think Louis David feels the same way. So we call him LD. So LD, is it cool to go by LD, or
Absolutely.
do we have to?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely,
great.
Andrew. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
Okay, great to see you, man. So LD is CEO and co-founder of Confiant. I've always loved the name from the first time I heard it. It reminds me of Defiant, and it's a fitting name. So this is a New York City-based malvertising business. So they're in the malvertising business, so that they're in the industry that is a leader, I think, in detecting, preventing, and resolving advertising issues online. So LD, before we dive into all things malvertising and what you guys do in your journey, give our listeners or some viewers advice on fundraising. So what's like one bit of advice you would give to a startup on raising angel or venture capital funding?
That's a great question. What would be my one bit of funding advice? It's a really good question. I think my advice would be that there is a lot of money out there right now, and there at the end of the day, there's always been a lot of money when it comes to people that have good ideas and that are able to show traction on developing those ideas into a business. I'd say my one piece of advice is actually something demonstrated by my relationship with Rubicon VC. I went and found investors who weren't just able to give money, but were actually truly astute in how they were able to give me feedback and criticism. The ability to present in confidence my thoughts, my ideas, and know that the other party is going to try to break them and find where the weaknesses are, but do it in a constructive way. And that's the relationship that I forged with Rubicon. That was the reason why we went with you as an investor, was because that feedback loop was very strong. And that is it's actually the most important thing from our business, from a security perspective. It's the feedback loop. And yeah. I believe it's the most important thing just from a general development perspective, internally for employees, but also externally for investors. It's like, as a CEO, finding people that can give you constructive feedback, critical feedback that you can hear and use and adapt and better triangulate the path forward is the biggest value an investor can give. Money's out there. Feedback is worth more.
Yeah. Well, I love hearing that. And, iteration and speaking to customers while building product and going back and forth is like, that is the new innovation. And if investors can even be attempting to be like a junior co-founder supporting what's happening, that's good. And investors have their models or their strategy of, do we invest in pre-revenue? Do we want to be the last money in before the exit? Where do they play? And I think it's useful to try to be part of the whole, examine how do we articulate, how are we presenting it, and trying to give good feedback. So, you're selected or lucky enough to be in these hot deals when they are raising money and it fits, and it fits your strategy. So I think good karma is part of it. But okay, so I want to hear specifically what Confiant does, but especially with this topic, why don't you help explain how the industry has evolved and like what is the sector that you're playing in, so we can understand the changes, and then how you guys are addressing these problems.
Absolutely. So at its core, Confiant is a cybersecurity company. And so my co-founder, Jerome, he's the brains, I'm the pretty face. That's the way we tend to joke about it. But his background is all things security. He was a coder since the age of 12 and bathed quite deeply in the security sphere at a young age. And it was when he was working as the general manager of a large website called Photolog, which at the time was the largest photo sharing website in South America, He was part of the executive team that had bought that was sent over to manage it after High Media, a French media company, had bought it from BetaWorks here in New York. And it was there that he saw firsthand the malware issues that the ads ecosystem had. And it surprised him because, given his knowledge of cybersecurity, he knew that advertising as a digital ads as a vector was not something that was being discussed in the broader cybersecurity world. It was considered, as you said, malvertising, which is, oh, that's just bad ads. But actually, the things he was finding inside those bad ads were the serious types of exploits that would get companies on the front page of the New York Times when they would get compromised with ransomware, with Trojans, and with the types of attacks that have become the most significant ones of our current era. And so this was 10 years ago when Jerome first started looking at ads as a vector for malicious behavior. And as he dug deeper, it was clear that there were actually two different vectors within the ad world for malicious behavior. One is the vector where the bad actors will seek to attack the advertiser. And that's very typically built into as a type of fraudulent attack where they're generating fraudulent impressions and trying to steal some of the advertisers' budget. So companies like Integral Ad Science, Double Verify, both of which have IPO'd this year, but also Human Security and a variety of others are companies that have been built up to manage that ad fraud vector. The other vector is the one Confiant focused on. So the other vector is where the bad actors will seek to attack the user. And so what's very interesting about that is that the types of attacks are quite varied. And just because the reality is that ads remain the best way to reach people around the world, period. And so good companies use ads to reach people, to generate business and positive effects for society and the economy, et cetera. But bad actors do as well. And so the bad actors use ads. So 10 years ago, the most common type of attack was drive-by downloads that would infect the user's device and compromise the device in some deep technical way.
LD, can I jump in for a second? Because I just find it so interesting. I remember seeing, I don't remember who the CEO of Yahoo was. They were changing their CEO so often that was, telling you something was wrong. But they said, hey, people pay you for like cost per click, CPC and CPM. Isn't it true that there's just software out there that's amping up your numbers, and you're sitting here cashing in on your customers when it's fraudulent? And he actually started laughing. He started laughing, and he was just like, I'm loving this liquid gold, and it was, he was almost complicit, in what was going on. So
it's a fine line between being complicit and just being negligent. And the reality is that the ad industry for many years was growing at such a significant compound annual rate that it had so many different fire drills of things that were broken that needed to be fixed to just get to the next dollar, the next year, and just keep improving, that the actual quality of the supply chain is not something that's been paramount in people's minds only until really the past few years. And so
which is crazy, because you think of, like, I remember this company in Helsinki told me, I finally gotten to the point, Andrew, that I can spend $20 or 20 euros on Google to get a customer to pay me 21 euros and 1 cent. And so, like, he was working round the clock weekends, 15-hour days, like, just to give all of his money to Google, and if some of that supply chain is corrupted, you think he would care.
The thing is, at the end of the day, if he could have gotten 22.05 cents, if the supply chain wasn't corrupted, he doesn't know. All he knows is that he can get his dollar out when he puts $20 in.
That's all he knows. It's all the world is paying attention to, is what I'm really trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. So what's interesting about advertising security, so we consider AdSec. Advertising security is the vector we protect from. It's where the bad actors will use ads to reach users to do something malicious. And so that range of malicious behavior 10 years ago, it was exploit kits and drive-by downloads and very technical based attacks. The industry was able to evolve past that when it curtailed the use of Flash as the main mechanism for ads, and it removed a lot of the holes that the bad actors have been using. And so the bad actors, as in every single security vector, this is a game of iteration, and so they go wherever they make the most money. The attackers that are compromising the ecosystem are often not the people that are actually delivering the payload. The person who chooses the attack is a company, and then they go and tell the black market saying, hey, we want to reach people, females 40 to 55 in the UK, Mr. Hacker, go hack the ad industry to get my stuff in front of those people. And then the attackers do that. And so the attackers shifted around 5+ years ago to a new attack method using basic JavaScript to do forceful redirections automatically from a page or an app into a phishing scam, most typically. And so they shifted from technical hacks that attack the infrastructure, the computers and the devices, to attacks that now went after data. And so that remained the major attack type for the past 5 years. But in the past 2 years, it's been very interesting because the attackers have again done a new shift. As the industry has started catching up and paying attention to the way these forceful redirects work, we've been able to start implementing more limits that impact the scale and the reach of those attacks. And with stronger feedback loop, we can mitigate them faster. And so the bad actors have again followed the money, and they've gone looking for something new. And so the latest type of attack is investment scams. So these ads and they're on all the pages associated with them are cloaked, so they're hidden from view. They'll only serve if they're matched to the right person in the right demographic with the right type of device environment and the right profile. And when they do show, though, these are pure financial fraud scams. If you were to go to Google right now and you type in crypto investment opportunity, I guarantee you that half of the ads served by Google on that page will be scams. And so when I say scam, I mean that they will present themselves as legitimate financial institutions, legitimate financial opportunities. As the potential clients start giving them money, they will tell you, hey, look, we're making you more money. You will put in more. They will keep telling you they're making you more. But the moment you try and withdraw any of those profits, all of a sudden, oops, you just lost all your money. Sorry, finance is risky. And this is a pervasive type of attack that is quite threatening for the ad industry because it has migrated beyond display ads. So display ads used to be the banner ads that we all know and love, used to be the major vector for all malicious behavior. With these new attack types, the bad actors have been able to compromise social, they've been able to compromise search, they've been able to compromise video, they've broadened their reach dramatically increased their profits. We estimate that over $1 billion a year is lost by individual users to these scams. The UK published some research last year that, or rather earlier this year, the FCA over there published some research estimating that UK citizens had lost just under, just over 120 million quid, so pounds sterling, so about 180, 190 million dollars. When the Australian government did the same research, they published that their citizens were losing about $250 million a year to these scams. What is dramatic about this is that people don't know. So individuals who have savings are going online looking for investment advice, and the very ads they're being served are malicious. And so people are getting conned into these investment scams. And so it's a very dramatic shift for the industry, because when people were losing their devices, yeah, it sucks. Your device gets bricked. All right, you lose some of your data, you lose your device, sucks, but you can get a new one and your life online continues. When they were losing data to the phishing scams, also sucks. Identity theft is not pleasant. Data theft is not pleasant. It can definitely impact people's lives and have a measurable impact on them, and it's not fun to have to figure out and deal with when it occurs. But when you lose your life savings,
yeah,
that's a different thing. And we're not talking about grandma here. we're talking about sophisticated individuals who are easily conned into these very sophisticated scams. There was an article just a few days ago on the BBC where a business owner, CEO, who had, I forget the type of business, but it was some type of brick and mortar business that had built up very successfully over the past 10, 20 years. He had over $500,000 in savings in cash, went looking for investment opportunities, saw one of these, decided, hey, this is the right path, and ended up losing all of his money.
Right.
So this
Well,
is
I
a
mean,
potentially savvy person who still gets conned into these. And so that's what this is what Confiant is most focused on these days, is battling this scourge and really therefore taking the security considerations a level deeper than anyone else has ever really done before. And looking beyond the technical characteristics to look at the psychological characteristics as well of how the attackers are really conning their way into people's mind, and unwinding that so that we can properly track these bad actors and help protect everyone from them.
yeah. I once I was the keynote speaker at a crypto blockchain event in New York City a couple of years ago. And while I was in the air, and it was a Friday afternoon, I think, keynote or something, and I'm flying back to San Francisco. And while I was in the air, someone ported my phone number, my 650 phone number, off of my iPhone onto an LD device, which I would never, had. And then by the time I landed, it had already been ported back to my iPhone. And they were using SMS authentication to hack into my Coinbase and other crypto accounts to steal my crypto. And they also got on my Telegram and started sending out racist things and horrible things, saying you're poor, to minority people that were, in my life. It's just horrible,
Oh,
But so it's the level of specific, and also on the ICO stuff, there were people that, like, Reality Clash has like come to realityclash.com and then put money into their ICO back in 2017, and they would do like Reality Clash hyphen or just one character, copy they were like identity theft the entire website and let these guys run all their ads. They had ads on Facebook. So if you did a search for Reality Clash, I think they're Russians, the Russian clone would come up, and you'd land there, wallet over the money there,
so
and it's
the
gone.
BBC article I mentioned, the ad was, they used, the gentleman was on YouTube. He was watching a video on YouTube. The ad popped up on the side. He's like, oh, this is interesting. Let me follow this. That's a problem. That is Google not securing its supply chain. It's like, at the end of the day, this is one of the most important issues of our time right now. So actually, both Google and Microsoft just recently came out with big commitments. Google's was sometime in August. They committed $10 billion over the next 5 or 10 years to the training of cybersecurity professionals. So of 100,000 new cybersecurity engineers that the digital world needs, as well as efforts to start properly securing the software supply chain. And that's a wonderful effort. It's great. I encourage them to consider spending some of that to secure their own supply chain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the questions I want to get into is Facebook's behavior, as we've evolved from the Yahoo CEO laughing on someone's depleting your budget by fake clicks so that the competitor comes up and they're just cashing in on this. But tell me that's very helpful to set the context of the different types of vectors that are out there. So what can you speak specifically about what Confiant does and maybe even your evolution?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the company, we are just over 8 years old, actually, 8 years and a week and a half. We were founded on September 3rd of 2013 by Jerome and myself. We started out initially really staying in R&D mode for the first years of the business, because one of the reasons that cybersecurity had never been done very deeply into the digital ad world is that the ad tech ecosystem, the digital ad ecosystem, is this hodgepodge of infrastructure that has been built on the fly as an industry has created itself from nothing to hundreds of billions of dollars of spend a year over the past 20 years. And so when you have an industry that's doing 20% compound annual growth every year for 20 years, that momentum generates a lot of tech debt for the industry. Simply because the shifting and the evolution, and then it's a hyper evolution on top of everything else that's happening. And so when we started out, there were no so any sophisticated security company will talk to you about what they do for detection, what they do for resolution, what they do for prevention. Those are the three pillars, the three first principles of cybersecurity. And when Confiant started out, there was no way to do accurate detection, because the data sets that were being generated from the flow of impressions within these digital pipes was so noisy that it actually would create a scenario where the bad actors always had a stronger feedback loop. And so there was no standardization on the data sets, there was no structure, and there was no way to get to the data we needed to be able to accurately track the reality of what is happening inside their pipes. The industry had what I tend to think about as a Schrodinger's cat problem, which is that in reality, you can never know what an ad server is going to do until the moment you call it. The only person that knows is the person who owns that server. And so you have to trust that what it did a second ago is the same thing it's going to do in a second when you call it again. And unfortunately, trust is not a good thing to rely on when you're doing cybersecurity. You need to actually build mechanisms that can verify that trust. And the industry did not have any mechanism that could accurately detect that and predict what was going to occur. And it was a big failing. And this was universal. All the different vendors that were active at the time, all the major platforms, Google included, everyone was using the same type of mechanisms that were generating compromised data sets. And so that was flaw number one that we identified in the industry. Flaw number two was was on the resolution side. And it was also more from kind of the startup product perspective. You had this data flaw in detection, and then you had this resolution flaw where even when detection was being done well enough, there was no way to act on it automatically. So from a product perspective, from a startup perspective, we were like, well, hey, wait a second. If we're going to be a cybersecurity company, our best case scenario is for us to be able to act on behalf of our clients to protect them. If we're just generating them emails and insights and generating more work for them, that's not ideal. If it's the best we can do, sure.
LD,
but the best case is if we act.
Just specify who are your customers. Who
So
are the main customers?
We today we've just passed 10 million in ARR, so super excited about that. 2/3 of our revenue is from major publishers, of whom the largest is Microsoft. So we protect MSN.com. Also, Axel Springer in Europe, The Guardian, Business Insider, Viacom, CBS, eBay, IBM, a who's who of major publishers. And then 1/3 of our business is ad platforms. So they're the people that are upstream of the publishers. And so our strategy has been from the beginning to kind of build into the industry in layers, and then to build customized integrations for each layer so that we can get that data for ourselves. All that growth, so we basically we stayed in R&D mode for the first years of the business to figure out these problems. How could we build an accurate detection system? How could we build an effective resolution system? And it was in May of 2017 that we came to market with our first major technology, which was the industry's first real-time blocking system. So we gave publishers control over these pipes and control over what was happening inside the pipes. And when we would find an ad that they didn't like, whether it was because we'd identified there was malware in it or a phishing scam, or because it was too heavy and slow, or it played audio or played video when it shouldn't, or it had content inside of it that was not acceptable to the publisher, we could now allow them to block just that one ad. And so that was a key innovation that we did, and it's kind of driven our growth ever since, that ability to do real-time blocking, but also that ability to do accurate detections. And so, yeah, our business over the past 4 years since we launched that has done almost 9x growth. The team is 42 people. Revenue has gone from 100 to 900K of MRR. And now it's about looking, now that we're at that 10 million ARR level, it's an important time for a software as a service business like ours, because we're at a scale where we can start broadening our purview. And so there are two major avenues that we're working towards right now. One is to deliver privacy compliance control into the ad industry. So it's up until now, we've done security controls and quality controls. And so now putting consent controls into our system that allows a publisher and a platform to verify that everyone is acting according to GDPR, according to CCPA.
And I wanted to ask, can you set us a bit of a context in the evolution of the internet as it relates to this, with like, what's the state of privacy in the digital ad world, and
yeah,
what is
privacy
GDPR
is the
and
biggest change the internet
CCPA
has
mean?
seen. Yeah, privacy is the biggest change the internet has seen in pretty much well over a decade. It has introduced a new factor into the equation of monetization online, and consent is a new currency, and it is a currency also, that is controlled.
And LD, just like maybe even you can talk about it in terms of what's legal, like with what Europe is maybe leading in, and then on privacy, and then what's acceptable or even smart behavior within what's legal. So for example, I had a friend, Jay Stevens, was running MySpace for Europe when they were killing Facebook. And he said, we're able to get so much information from your MySpace profile that we can put you into, we could be, I see you like the Doors, I'm gonna serve you the Doors. And but they said that people freaked out when the ads were too customized. And so then they work to put you in one of 25 boxes. So even they don't know you're listening to whatever. And then they market to, you're in that box, demographic, age, whatever.
Yeah, contextual. Yeah, for sure.
So there was freaking people out with a little bit of an invasion of privacy. How do you know too much about me? And then there's the goddamn law.
So none of what you just described is illegal, as I understand it, under current laws, because contextual advertising, when building that context and building that bucket, as long as no personal identifiable information, PII, is being shared with the upstream parties that are advertising against these buckets, then that is still completely legal and allowed. And it is the reality of the ad industry that it has for years now gotten so much information that individuals do not realize they're giving away, and has had to be very careful about what information it chooses to use and how, for exactly those reasons, because it's the information flow that occurs from a user's browser to the internet and back is incredibly rich. And where we, as at least even in the US, but in Europe and in many different societies, where we are extremely conscious and considerate of the data we share with the government, we are absolutely inconsiderate with the data we share with private enterprises. It's very simple. And any service that we receive for free from a company on the internet means that they are making money on the individual's data. The individual is the product in that scenario. The free thing they're being given is a leading product to get the person's attention. But the minute that you are benefiting from something that you don't pay for, you can be guaranteed that means you are the client. You are the product that is then being sold to someone else.
Right.
Yeah. And so GDPR does impose limitations on this. It requires that sites have what's called a CMP, which is a consent management platform, that when you get to their site, they ask you the type of tracking they are allowed to do and giving you controls over that. Not the niche, but the angle that Confiant has identified is lacking within the ad world specifically is compliance to ensure that once that CMP has done its work, getting the user's consent from them or not, And then that consent is passed into the ad ecosystem, and no one's checking that all the activities associated with the ads are actually compliant with that consent. And so this is where, when we think of putting our clients' best best interests ahead of ours, we try and really think about how is this problem looking like from the point of view of the client. So security problems, quality problems, privacy problems, those are all from the point of view of the publisher, from the point of view of the ad industry, those are all the same type of problem. They're a control problem. The industry has not built proper controls into its supply chain. They've not built proper controls into its pipes that allow the end user, the publisher, to actually automatically control what is coming out of those pipes. And so that's where Confiant steps in. We are in many ways, we're putting band-aids around this very leaky ship to try and ensure that the holes where things can leak through get plugged, and actually control and put spigots that allow us to not just plug it, but actually allow us to control the valve that exports this data and exports these activities. And so we're super excited about the privacy product, the privacy verification we just released. It in many ways required it required three very, very distinct heavy lifts on our part. One was leveraging our threat actor tracking structure that we use to track the bad actors, using the same type of actor tracking to actually map all the entities that exist within the ad world. So anyone showing up in any ad call, in any browser, anywhere in the world, there's a fingerprint to that person. There's an infrastructure they're using. And then there's a technical infrastructure, and then there's a business infrastructure that needs to be associated, because the two need not always be the same. If you go in, there's been so much buying and selling and M&A over the years, that represents entities changing corporate control, but the underlying infrastructure of the original entity is still actually built into the fabric of the web. So then you have to figure out, well, who is this? Who is this person behind this domain? Who is this? Who does this server belong to? Who does this domain act on behalf of? And so that was heavy lift number one, was mapping all those entities, and doing so in such a way that we could keep track of them over time as they iterate their infrastructure as well. The second heavy lift was looking at the type of tracking mechanisms the industry does today. So everything is cookie based, and so cookies have been we got near a cookie apocalypse earlier this year, but that got delayed when Google decided to delay the deprecation of cookies within Chrome. But there's already been major browsers like Safari and the like that have for years sought to constrain the use of cookies because they represent the privacy invasion opportunity that they offer. But so we then therefore had to build a mechanism that could reliably distinguish a tracking cookie versus a functional cookie. Cookies have a lot more uses than just tracking. And so being able to identify when someone is doing tracking and how was the second heavy lift. And then the third one was the building out of a privacy engineering team similar to our security engineering team. Our security engineers are highly technical, highly paid specialists that are at the top of their game at being able to read the tea leaves of the data, what's happening inside the system. And we have to, when you do security right, you have to build a human into the loop. Today, there's very few AI-powered companies or AI-powered security companies that do not actually have humans properly reviewing and controlling for the determinations made by the system, because the requirements of reliability from a false positive and a false negative perspective are too high. When Confiant says this is bad, it gets blocked. It stops happening. So if we say it's bad, but it wasn't, that means we're costing our clients money. And we can't afford that. We can't afford to be delivering a protection service that actually hurts their bottom line. So we have a very low tolerance for false positives and false negatives. And so in order to manage that, in order to mitigate those risks, you build security tech with a human in the loop. Our technology system actually has different driver seats and different components built in, so that there is an actual human brain doing the level of pattern matching necessary to ensure the highest level of accuracy. So we had to do that same thing, replicate that same system, that same behavior, that same specialty with a privacy engineer as well, so that we could have the same level of accuracy and reliability on our determinations of our system. And so with that base, we're really excited about what's to come, because I think there is a general alignment that is occurring in the web or in the internet of the security wave and the security needs with the privacy wave and the privacy needs, and they're actually running concurrently together. And so we're surfing two waves with one strategy.
And well, it's almost like shameful this hasn't happened sooner, and that the world was allowed to operate in such a rogue, way with so much money at risk and so much damage. But like when you see Germany, like the government of Germany, what ability do they have to even enforce what they're attempting to, say is legal?
The challenge here. So France has started doing fines for ad-related privacy infringement. So the CNIL has issued a fine in August to the Figaro in France, which is one of the main papers there. And this was the first fine for an ad-based infringement on an individual user's consent. And so the governments are able to levy fines. That's really the main mechanism that a government has. And when it comes to privacy, the challenge though is that there is the letter of the law, there is the spirit of the law, and then there's the reality that the industries that the law is being applied to currently live in. The reality of the programmatic ad industry, which is a $150 billion industry a year, is that it is technically impossible to be GDPR compliant.
Right.
The data that is being said to now be private and controlled is built, the need for that data, specifically the need for IP, is built into the fabric of the industry. It is technically impossible to remove the need of IP from digital advertising. And so now this therefore becomes a question of, well, the industry wants to live up to the law. It understands it and recognizes the reasons why, and is making strong steps to do so. But it can't technically, the technologies necessary to make all this work cannot work if there isn't some identification of individuals, and that is IP. Where is your browser? Where you are a computer, there's an address. You need to send mail. The US Postal Service doesn't work if you don't have a mailbox. If you don't have an address, you can't send mail. And that is what the ads ecosystem, at the end, that is what the internet does. The internet sends packets of mail back and forth between servers, and those packets of mail are various different types of information and content and anything you need it to be. And so this is a reality of the fact that actually at the end of the day, the regulators, the bureaucrats crafting these rules, or technocrats, if you want to be in Europe, there are more of those. There's a mix of both. Have crafted something that is, they are asking a technical impossibility from the industry, and so there is still a need to live up to the spirit of the law, while also educating how the law needs to be amended so as to allow for this industry to continue, or not, in which case the government will be outlawing a whole portion of the web from legally operating in their country, and that's just unlikely to happen. So there is best efforts being made on both sides, I believe, and it's something that will shake out over the years to come. So this is consent being the new privacy. It is a new reality, and so now everyone needs to figure out how to adapt to that and what changes need to happen. And changes will come, but it will take years to sort out.
And in your understanding of the world, who are the bad actors and where are they?
There's definitely links to organized crime. The technical threat actors, i.e. the ones that are able to technically compromise the ecosystem and create the opportunity for an attack, that then go sell access that they build to other third parties. So that the technical threat actors are very commonly out of Eastern Europe and Asia. So Russia, China are prime are likely candidates for where a lot of these threat actors are based out of, because of their ability to be insulated from the legal ramifications of their behaviors. But the companies that do the payload, so the companies that pay these technical threat actors to go and get this scam delivered in front of a user, or that go and get this exploit kit delivered onto a device on Apple's network, or et cetera, et cetera. Those vary. So for instance, the financial scam entities, the fraudulent, the companies behind the investment scams that I mentioned earlier in our conversation, we tracked 46 different entities in Q2 that were financially registered entities. And the mix was about 50% registered in Cyprus, and then the rest distributed across Europe and certain places in the Caribbean and Latin America. And so the reality that the technical threat actor need not actually be the same as the group that is delivering the actual end payload, the scam or the attack or whatever it is, there's a marketplace for them. And so they pay them, and they go then, the payload owners who pay the technical threat actors to execute an attack, and it's a virtuous, well, it's a vicious cycle in this case for us. It's a virtuous cycle for them where they feed each other and make more money, and it's a very lucrative business. There is these entities likely have at the top of their structures individuals who know that they are acting illegally, and that know that they're doing something quite malicious, and then they have a lot of employees who get paid to come into work and make the system run. It's unfortunately built into the fabric of our world that there are assholes, and assholes seek to make money any way they want and any way they can, and they don't care about the after effects of that.
Yeah, I think some people, I think sometimes, I mean, Cyprus is like the Delaware of Russia, right? That's where you incorporate, so that's what Cyprus is. It also attracts some of the worst people from the UK that are enjoying mixing with their Russian friends down there. But I think that sometimes people were saying business was illegal in the Soviet Union. And when, the walls came down, they thought making money in ways that we would deem to be immoral and illegal, they're just saying, well, that's just business. And so there almost is no conscience of I'm moving money out of their pocket into mine. That's the same as if I were selling them something and moving money out of their pocket into mine. I'm not trying to blanket an entire nationality, but I'm saying there are a few people that would be challenged to even understand what they're doing is wrong. And that's what you're dealing with. Well, switching gears before we wrap up, going from 0 to 1 million in ARR as a SaaS company in cybersecurity, where every engineer is being recruited at every single second. What are some lessons learned, or what are some lessons learned of going from 1 million to 10 million in 4 years? Obviously,
so
as investors,
it's funny, we did 0 to 1 in 4 years, and then 1 to 10 in 4 years. So definitely trod our own path on this, and generally as well, we did it with a very different profile than most SaaS businesses. So it's a fairly common truism that for every 100K of MRR our SaaS business achieves, it typically will take in $1 million of equity investment to drive that. So if one gets to 900K of MRR, one typically on average has taken $9 million in funding to get to that. So we've achieved that only on 4.1 million in funding. So from the get-go, we've always operated a very sustainable business in terms of, hey, let's minimize the amount of investment to get the maximum traction out, and really focus on our technology and our product first and foremost, and let's build the right stuff for the right people, type of thing. But so I'd say the biggest lesson from 0 to 1 was we didn't put enough importance on our culture from a hiring perspective. We were so excited about getting anyone excited about coming to work with us, and that we were able to get anyone excited about participating in this adventure that we were on with Jerome, that we didn't pay as much attention to really the fit that those individuals had for us. And so when we actually, about 6 months before we did our full launch in 2017, we kind of took a step back and said, all right, wait a second, we're doing something wrong here because we have as many ex-employees as we have existing employees. And that's not good.
But yeah, but I even said before you said all that was that it's very hard to keep an employee in this industry, right?
It is, but it's since we've done, when you make an effort to really define and hold yourself accountable to a positive, kind, purpose-filled, facts-driven, not ego-driven culture, individuals love purpose. At the end of the day, where we attract people that know that they want to be the good guys, that know that our true competition is not other vendors. Our competition, the people we compete with, are the bad guys. We compete against the bad people that are looking to break through the protections we deploy. And when they break through, other people get hurt. And so we are there to prevent that. And that's a nice calling. That's something that individuals can really sink their teeth into and say, no, I've got purpose. And so that's very powerful. But so, yeah, main lesson for the first one was like get your hiring right so that you aren't cycling out, and especially technical engineers talent, because the impact that has on the speed of development is dramatic. We would have been much faster if we hadn't had those issues.
I think it is key for any startup with real technical entrepreneurs and even non-technical employees is to enable them to self-actualize. Enable every employee to reach their maximum potential for where they are right now and feel as if they're heading in the right direction. You know, sometimes even working with large corporations on the venture side, I'm dealing with an individual and I tend to say, this is what is in the interest of the bank or the whole large telco, whatever like I'm talking to the board of directors. And then I realize I'm dealing with the individual who's got her own career path. So someone could interact with someone in your organization and they're not dealing with Jerome and you, they're dealing with just that one person. And so it's kind of your job to help that person self-actualize and see themselves as on the path that is the best path for them to be on. And in the cybersecurity world, at the level you're playing, you've got to treat everybody like you're trying to marry them. To an extent, and it sounds like there's been a little bit of suffering that.
It's been hard fought and well learned, and so the strength of our culture today is incredibly strong. We have super high loyalty, super high NPS with our employees, and more importantly, we have a team that enjoys themselves, that has fun at their job, and is able to tackle hard challenges together. With alignment, and so it was a really important part for Jerome and I that we created an environment where we could have fun. Both of us view startups and technology as something that is creative, as something that can be had fun with, and that is where we want our cake and we want to eat it too. We want to enjoy the path we take to our success and not sacrifice the joy of that path for anything else. For just the success of it.
Well, listen, I'll let you go, and I think that when you're trying to enjoy and smell the roses a bit, that's a must do. You're actually going to hit a landmine and blow out if you don't. I think that there's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of COVID was tough, and there's so many people that want to hire your employees right now that if you're not doing something to make them happy, you guys are not going to achieve the mission. And what you're doing is incredibly important, and the success is there. So listen, man, great to see you. We'll let you go.
You too, Andrew.
Catching up
Pleasure.
soon.
Thank you very much. Great chat.
Thanks so much. Bye for now.
Cheers. Bye-bye.